Good evening. Welcome to Peoria City Council regular meeting for Tuesday, June 4th. Would you please rise, observe a moment of silence, and then participate in the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilwoman Kathy Carlett. Thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Barrett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Rivero.
Here.
Councilmember Ames.
Here.
Councilmember Patena.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Carlott.
Here.
And Councilmember Leone.
Here.
Thank you. This is the final call to submit the speaker request forms. The speaker request forms can be found in the lobby. Fill it out, give it to the clerk, and we will call upon you at the appropriate time. The first item up tonight is presentations. And this will be certificates of completion for the 2013 Peoria Leadership Institute graduates.
Well, this is a great event to begin our council meeting this evening. Is to give the certificates to our Peoria Leadership Institute graduates. They're all here tonight, and this program, for those of you that are watching either here or on television, is one of our hallmark programs in civic engagement, where we invite citizens to come and spend several evenings learning everything there is to learn about the city of Peoria. We often get very, very good feedback about the activities, and it's fun for us to present from time to time. And tonight, the participants got to meet with the mayor and city council before tonight's meeting. What we'll do is I will read off the name of the graduate, and you can come up and receive your certificate, and Shireen will take a picture with the mayor. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anyone's name. I'm going to try my best, but I usually mess up at least one or two, so I'm sorry. The first one is Andy Iyer.
Okay, everybody else pay attention. This is what we're going to do.
Nelson Benton. Charles Brune. Cyril Colbert, or Colbert, I'm not sure. No?
I do the standing photo. No.
Brian Dillard. Ann Drew. Jim Drew. Oops, sorry. Donald Ewing. Carolyn Ewing. Leslie Fountain. Brian Friedman. I'm sorry, Ronald Friedman. Boy, I messed it up, and that was an easy one. There's Brian. Brian Greathouse. Right. Janavi Casper. Jim Keller. Thomas Lavallee. Phyllis Messer. Randy Parsons. Dustin Patrick. Tim Plona. Randy Proch. Kimberly Rowland. Suzanne Rowe. Franklin Schiller. Ella Spencer. Jennifer Stoth. Pamela Steber. Charlene Van Leuven. And David Weiss. And that's all. We're good. Thank you all.
Understand their cities. Next item up is the consent agenda. The consent agenda are all items that are listed with a C. They're considered to be routine, or they've been previously reviewed by the city council. They will be enacted in one motion unless someone asks an item be removed. Do we have any requests? Hearing none, could I have a motion?
So move.
Just hold a moment, please. What? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't turn this thing on. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to request to remove 6C and 7C for presentation.
Okay. Who's up? With the removal of 6C and 7C, could I have a motion to approve the rest of it? Moved by Councilwoman Carlett, seconded by Mr. Leone. Please vote. Clerk will record your vote. It is unanimous. Thank you. 6C is Code Amendment, Chapter 2, Community Service Department Fees. Mr. Questions?
No questions, just want a staff presentation at this point.
Thank you very much.
John Sefton of our Community Services Department will lead the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This request is for approval amending ordinance number 2013-07, amending section 2-207 of Chapter 2 in the Peoria City Code, making changes to the Community Services Department fees table for FY 2014. I'd like to take a quick moment to highlight a couple of the key policies that guide this recommendation. The recreation pricing and fees policy defines the pyramid pricing model, which outlines how services are priced. Cost recovery goals are reviewed and updated annually, and the policy defines fees, which include admission fees, membership fees, rental fees, user and sales of merchandise fees. It also defines the costs of services, which include direct costs, which might be specific to providing a program, as well as indirect costs, which can include overhead, internal service fees, IT, staff time, as well as insurance. There's also a market rate fee, which takes into consideration a market-based budgeting process. Fees for services are reviewed and adjusted annually in concert with the annual budgeting process. New fees and charges are brought before Mayor and Council for approval. And a fee table, which is included in your council communication, becomes part of the updated city code. Important policy considerations that we take into consideration in making these recommendations: who benefits from the policy or who benefits from the service? Will imposing a full cost fee create a hardship on specific users in our community? And if so, how can we support them? A good example is our Youth Scholarship Fund for youth sports programs and other activities. And additionally, what does a market study indicate as an acceptable rate of service? And aquatics might be a good example. If we were to have 100% cost recovery for aquatics, folks would have to pay between $20 and $26 per visit. This pyramid pricing model is described here in the graphic. Really is based upon establishing fees that are commensurate with the benefit received by the individual or benefit received by the community. The foundation of the pyramid represents the mainstay of a recreation program. The foundation and the upward progression represent the core mission of recreation to provide services to the community first, and then expand into individual benefits and other specialized services and programs as resources allow. The philosophy is applied to the current programming, or the core programming, as described on the right. As you can see, Ramada rentals or field reservations are expected to recover 100% of cost recovery, whereas the summer rec program or the community center or neighborhood parks would not have very many expectations of recovering costs. The next policy is the field allocation policy. It was adopted in August of 2012 as well. It goes into further identifying specific categories of users, from city use and co-sponsored events to those that we have an IGA with school districts, nonprofit groups, and youth tournaments, and then all other groups are categorized in Section 4. This policy also gives staff guidance in scheduling league play, seasonal play, or tournaments, dependent upon whether that sport is in season. The proposed fees are approximately 25% increased across the board, with some obviously rounding up here and there just to make the numbers make sense. They're very specific to the cost recovery model that are in that 100% cost recovery. These fees have not been raised since the original adoption in 2004. And with this current analysis, it puts the Peoria reservation fees sort of at the median of our other market communities. We did a market study of 17 municipal organizations with similar but I would dare to say not comparable in other types of amenities, ball fields, et cetera. And these next slides are in your council agenda information as well, and give an example of the proposed fee, an increase in hourly rates, some cleanup deposits, and they all have a range based upon those 4 different categories. And particularly driving this is obviously the addition of our new community park, Pioneer Community Park. And with that, I'll do my best to answer your questions.
Questions or comments? Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. First question, what's the main factor guiding the increases aside from the market study?
By adding additional, we're recognizing that we were at the bottom of the rate. There's additional costs associated with having the fields available, especially at this level of play with Rio Vista and Pioneer Community Park. So we're recognizing increases and trying to reach, again, that 100% cost recovery and doing the market analysis. This puts us not at the top range, but right in the middle.
Okay. What cities are at the top and bottom?
I don't have that direct information. I can get you the detail of what we did with the analysis.
Okay. Before we make the vote, I just want to make a short statement that at this moment, I can't support an increase in fees. Our community is hurting. Everybody's hurting, and I believe increasing these fees are not prudent at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Carlett.
Thank you. Can you go back to the pyramid? This is an overall philosophy, a policy that the council voted on a while back, and it has to do with varying degrees of cost recovery, right? I'm just trying to make sure that I understand what we're doing here. So if it's something that is completely arbitrary, if you will, like somebody decides that they want to rent a Ramada, well, we don't want other taxpayers to pay for that, so we are going to charge that group 100% of what it would cost to recover the fees associated with that person renting that. But on the other hand, if it is a teen program or a summer recreation program or an aquatics program, those are things that we are considering. They're already paying taxes. This park already belongs to them. We're not going to try to get full cost recovery from them. Is that correct? And these percentages have been calculated based on how we determine how much cost recovery they should pay?
Correct. Okay. And again, it's visited annually as part of the budget process. So these, again, is very much a philosophy in how we subsidize the different programs, or don't subsidize those programs.
So if something is highly individual, then they will be responsible for 80 to 100% of the cost recovery of their program, because it's something that they are choosing to do that it would not really be fair for other taxpayers to pay for their personal use. But on the other hand, if it's something for the benefit of the community at large, then that is 100% covered by the city or by the taxpayers.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I understood this whole policy and philosophy. And to me, it's a very fair and logical philosophy. And I still, even though we all voted on it already, I still support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a motion? Could I have moved by Mr. Patena, seconded by Ms. Carlett. This is 6C, Code Amendment, Chapter 2, Community Services, Department Fees. Please vote. The clerk will record the vote. Is approved 6-1 with Mr. Rivero dissenting. 7C, Code Amendment, Chapter 18, Parks. Mr. Rivero, questions?
Presentation at this point.
Okay.
Okay, switching gears and switching colors. The request for the City Council, this request is for City Council to adopt the proposed ordinance 2013-01, amending Chapter 18 of the Peoria City Code pertaining to parks and recreation. Community Services, in collaboration with the Peoria Police Department, the City Attorney's Office, bring you these changes that are intended to help keep city departments able to provide orderly, safe, and healthy park areas within Peoria. With a focus on balancing the operational need and customer service, parks and police department staff look to gain voluntary compliance through education and effective communication on the rules associated with our community parks. If a violation were to get to the point of court action, having these rules adopted and part of the operational management of city parks affords city prosecutors the opportunity to take legal action against those that might violate the rules and regulations. The major highlights are listed in your council communication, and we'll run through them quickly. Most of the updates are associated with various formatting, verbiage cleanup. We make a few definitions with respects to what a hiking trail is or what a trailhead is. We address parks and vehicles and officer authority and to right violations. We have some general rules of conduct that are updated, specifically addressing items like touching animals or feeding animals or fishing without license, and as well leaving animals in hot vehicles. Folks cannot go hiking this time of year and leave their animals in their cars at the trailhead. This will make it a violation of law. Additionally, we have some parks rules of conduct, areas that we might have an issue in a park. If we post that, whether it be a no smoking area or other types of behaviors that we would wish to mitigate in a public park, we would post those on signs, making it the opportunity for parks enforcement or park staff or the parks rangers to address that by having rules posted on signs. It would be a violation not to follow those rules. And with recent changes of past years with fireworks being readily available, it will not be allowed to shoot fireworks in community parks. With that, I'll respond to
Questions or
questions.
comments?
No questions.
Ms. Carla?
Yeah, I really appreciate you adding the part about fireworks in there. I think that it's really important that people understand that fireworks are not legal within the city of Peoria, and writing it here is important. I really worry about fireworks every time, July 4th comes around, especially because we have too much desert and too much heat. And so I'm glad that we put it in writing. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Mr. Ames?
Correct me if I'm wrong, weren't we going to relook at that, though? I'm not crazy about fireworks myself. I scare my dog and all kinds of things, but...
Councilmember Ames, yes, we are going to relook at it in terms of the state law. This particular provision will only be applicable to parks, and the basic reason for it will be that our park rangers will be able to issue citations where if it's not in the parks code, they can't issue citations. But we will be looking again at this year and coming back at some point with and seeing how it worked. We looked at it a year ago, and we didn't seem to have significant problems. There's also a couple bills pending in the legislature which may alter this a bit as well. And then once the session is done, we can advise the council and come back.
Okay, so we'll be looking at whether or not we're going to continue not allowing them or change that.
Generally in the city in terms of state law.
That's assuming the session never ends.
You have to what?
The session never ends. Okay, other questions or comments? Okay. Could I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Rivero, second by Mr. Edwards. This is 7C, Code Amendment, Chapter 18, Parks. Please vote. The clerk will record the vote. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. That moves us to the regular agenda. First item up is 17R, Community Development Block Grant Loan, Maxwell Technologies.
Scott White, our Economic Development Services Director, will present this item.
Good evening. The matter before you tonight is consideration of some additional security for a HUD Section 108 loan. But what I thought I might do first is provide a little context as to what exactly this action is all about. As you may recall, previously the City Council approved a development agreement with Maxwell Technologies. In that development agreement, the city had some obligations of a financial nature in terms of attracting Maxwell Technologies to the city of Peoria. It was our intention at the time to look at the use of federal resources through the CDBG Section 108 loan tool that is overseen by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as a way to stretch our resources for additional economic development activities, essentially looking to use the federal resources to meet our obligations in the development agreement as opposed to using city resources, and thus spread our available resources even further. So upon approval of the development agreement, we started that process. And as you can well imagine, dealing with federal agencies, it takes quite a long time. But where we are today, and this is a team that includes the planning department as they administer the CDBG program, we have gone through the budget process and the not-for-profit council committee to use the CDBG fund entitlement resources for loan repayment, and we have cleared the HUD local office, and now it's the HUD headquarters office in Washington, D.C. that's considering this matter. The matter being approval of our Section 108 loan application. One of the items that's hopefully what we believe the last item for us to consider is what is called additional security requirements under the CDBG program to obtain a Section 108 loan. Essentially what HUD is saying is, in addition to your annual entitlement grant of CDBG funds that are pledged towards repayment of this loan, should that program ever disappear, what then will be the backstop for the loan that the city is receiving? So what they have agreed to accept and what we are recommending is a general fund pledge equal to the outstanding balance of the loan. So one, I think the application process is nearing the final finish line. Two, in order to cross that finish line, we need to provide what HUD is looking for in terms of additional security. If HUD does not approve the loan, then our additional security requirements go away. The Section 108 loan funds are not realized. And what we would do to meet our existing DA obligations is to use the resources that have already been identified in our capital budget. But the reason why we're going through this exercise is to see if we can get federal dollars instead of using our local dollars. So that is really the purpose of the matter tonight, is to put some closure on that process. Again, if council approves the resolution authorizing a general fund pledge, then we would submit our final package to HUD Washington, hopefully get that approved, and then we will only draw the funds once Maxwell Technologies has met its obligations in terms of job creation. One of the important parts of our development agreement is that our assistance is only called upon and would we have an obligation to pay upon Maxwell Technologies creating the jobs as obligated and proving to our satisfaction that they have been created. So it's called post-performance assistance. With that, I would also like to give you a quick update as to, well, where is Maxwell Technologies in terms of their process? They did have a bit of a delay. As you may recall, Maxwell Technologies is an international company, and with a lot of the financial crisis that was occurring in Europe over the past 12 months, that affected some of their plans for expansion. But they're back on track. Building permits have been issued. Tenant improvement build-out is underway. The tenant improvement build-out should be completed by September of 2013. Initial hiring for technician positions by Maxwell Technologies will begin this summer. Hiring for operators and support personnel will occur in the fall of 2013. Maxwell Technologies' projections is that if all goes as planned, the Peoria facility will be open for production at the end of November 2013, which includes an 8-week qualification process for the material made at the facility. This facility will eventually run a 4-shift operation with a 2-shift daytime operation starting in the fourth quarter of 2013, also known as the end of the calendar year, then a full 4-shift operation by the end of the first quarter of 2014. So far, so good. All indications are that we're full steam ahead. So circling back to why we're here tonight, it's just to get approval of the resolution, making our general fund pledge available for that additional security and submit our final HUD application. With that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ames?
Did you say Ames? Oh, I thought you said Edwards. Oh, okay. Yes, I appreciate your presentation, Scott. There are a lot of milestones and things that had to be met anyway here. But in terms of this loan, it'd be very extreme that we would have to use this collateral right with the federal government, but it's just a procedure that they require.
Exactly. What would have to happen in order for the pledge security to be called upon is that the federal government would have to terminate the CDBG program. Now, the CDBG program has been in existence since 1974 and has survived a lot of economic cycles and partisan administration. So is that possible? Yes. Is it probable? If history is any indicator, I would say probably not. But yes, the entire program would have to be eviscerated in order for this additional security pledge to be called upon.
And if that did happen, they would come out of general funds, but couldn't we move some of the economic development funds into the general fund then?
I would defer to
Or are we
Brent
just-
Mattingly, but I'll take a stab at that. And Brent, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Or have that as a possible collateral too? Or?
I believe that those general fund revenues that have been identified as part of the EDIS funding could be shifted into that obligation, but let me defer to Brent on that.
If council so chose, yes.
Yes.
The federal government required the general fund, or the city's largest fund, to provide the security for the loan. The city council would have the option of what funds would actually pay loan payments should they be required, and you'd have a variety of options for that.
So we actually have even other options here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Patena?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. White, first of all, I'd like to go on record as saying that I support economic development and I support good-paying jobs in the city of Peoria. My question is, actually I have a few questions. This is a very large commitment on behalf of the city of Peoria, both through the CDBG program as well as putting up the collateral from the general fund of $1.5 million for up to 10 years. Right now we have Maxwell Technologies is behind about a year, and you explained why that happened. What do we have as assurances? Because if we're going to be giving back to Maxwell Technologies essentially somewhere between the neighborhood of $150,000 and $170,000 a year, what assurances do we have that Maxwell Technologies is going to keep moving forward and not continue to delay? That's my first question. My second question is as we plan on giving that money back to Maxwell Technologies, if we don't, that money goes back to the CDBG program as we did this year. That puts a particular heavy burden on that program to try to get that money spent in a timely fashion. So I worry about, there's this thing called the 1.5 rule that I worry about, and HUD watches that very carefully, and it could potentially put this entire grant at risk. So what assurances do we have from you or from Maxwell Technologies that they're going to say what or do what they said they're going to do and stay on track in the future?
Right. As to the first point, what protections do we have? The way we negotiated and structured that development agreement was there was two kind of provisions that protected our interests, I believe. One was that this is post-performance, and that Maxwell Technologies doesn't get a dime until they generate the jobs that they say they're going to. Of the 150 jobs over 3 years that they're obligated to produce, 140 of them are new. Only 10 are being relocated from San Diego. So the new ones are new net jobs for hopefully Peoria residents. But at the end of the day, if they do not produce the jobs, they don't get paid. And so that's one. Two is there's a provision in the development agreement that states that, and it's under the direct revenue benefit to the city, that essentially, if prior to the end of 84 months from the effective date of the agreement, Maxwell engages in what we call a loss of revenue event, meaning they cease operations, they substantially downsize operations in the city, or otherwise adversely impact the city's ability to recoup fiscal benefit from their operation, then Maxwell Technologies shall pay the city the difference not to exceed $1.5 million between what we invested and what they generated. So let's say they open the doors, making up a scenario, and within 84 months, they only produce 50% of the fiscal benefit that we anticipated. They would be on the hook. Even, they create the jobs, we pay for the jobs, and they still didn't realize the fiscal benefit. They're on the hook to pay us back that. So we felt that protected our interest in terms of how do we know that we're going to get our money's worth. Again, if they don't create, we don't pay. As to the 1.5 rule, essentially that if I reach back 10 years into my CDBG days, I think that you should have no more than 1.5% of your, 1.5 times your annual entitlement allocation unspent on an annual basis. The CDBG funds allocated and purposed for Section 108 loan repayment, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll defer to Karen Imig to correct me if I'm wrong, are automatically taken off the top. So once that loan is approved, funds are drawn, that repayment is taken right off the top. So that would be an automatic payment that HUD would just take every year. Karen, did I get that right? Okay.
Okay, so what my question was, and if they don't perform, we don't pay. So if we don't pay, that money comes back to where?
If we determine because of Maxwell's non-performance that the 108 loan was not needed, because we're not going to draw down the money until we need it being defined as them creating a job, then we would terminate our application and not draw the funds.
Okay. If we set aside the $1.5 million in collateral, that's being set aside then for 10 years, correct?
Correct. The term of the loan is 10 years, but the amount that is to be paid is based on the amount drawn.
Okay. So does that mean that if Maxwell Technologies doesn't perform, well, let's say they do perform, let's say they're doing very well, then we just pay you back essentially according to the amount of jobs that they produce on a given year?
Right. What would happen is if, different scenario, if Maxwell Technologies does perform and we draw the loan proceeds, then we would use those loan proceeds to pay Maxwell. Then our annual CDBG entitlement grant for the amount of the outstanding principal and interest would be drawn upon to pay the loan. So essentially your CDBG funds are repaying back the Section 108 loan.
Okay. Now, these positions are going to be all low-mod positions, correct, or the majority of them?
No, 51% of the positions. The CDBG requirements under the national objective of low-mod income job creation calls for no less than 51% of the jobs to be held by or created for or held by low and moderate income people. So what we're applying for is that 51% of the jobs would be created for moderate income households.
Okay.
We're also looking for Maxwell Technologies to, under the terms of their development agreement, supply the needed documentation to ensure compliance with that CDBG requirement in the form of an income self-certification form for every position created.
So what are the assurances we're going to be able to show HUD that we actually did seek out low-mod income people?
Well, first of all, the jobs created, and this is why post-performance is so important, is the package of information that they would have to submit to us to evidence that the job creation objective has been reached, and would include self-certification forms under the HUD prescribed format, showing that no fewer than 51% of the jobs are held by moderate income households or made available to. The made available to test is a function of what kind of training programs would Maxwell provide to allow those income families to qualify for those positions. So in working closely with Karen Imig in the planning department, we feel that we have a process to ensure that we've papered the file appropriately to survive a HUD monitoring. But again, if they don't produce the documentation, don't create the jobs, we don't pay. If we don't pay, we don't draw the funds. If we don't draw the funds, then we cancel the loan, and then we can use the CDBG funds for whatever the intended purpose is.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, could I have a motion? Moved by Ms. Carlett, seconded by Mr. Patana. This is 17R, Community Development Block Grant Loan, Maxwell Technologies. Please vote. Clerk will record the vote. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next is 18R, Agreement Amendment, TheaterWorks.
Deputy City Manager Jeff Tyne will present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The action before you is consideration of a lease amendment that currently exists between the City of Peoria and TheaterWorks. Just a quick background in regard to the Center for the Performing Arts, just over here at 84th Drive and Peoria Avenue, is housing a 20,000 square foot facility and includes a 273-seat theater as well as an 80-seat black box theater. This is a city-owned facility, largely supported through city funds, and the city indeed pays the debt service currently on that building. However, we have an agreement with TheaterWorks. TheaterWorks is a 501c3 not-for-profit entity, which serves as what's called the master tenant. In other words, not only do they serve through the box office and the programming of activities, but also the facility maintenance and other aspects of the Center for the Performing Arts. In doing so and in providing all of those services, the city assesses a nominal facility lease of $1 a year. So just in comparison that to other arrangements throughout the central Arizona area, and you can see that it really varies from community to community. Sometimes the city both is the owner-operator, sometimes in conjunction with the school district or with outside third-party groups and not-for-profits as well. So just some recent discussions and activity. You may recall that in March 2012, the City Council directed staff to work with the executive leadership of TheaterWorks to look at different arrangements going forward to their current lease agreement. And that since that time, we've looked at that both in a short and long-term frame. Within the short term, there's been quite a bit of discussion and action in regarding to collaborating on different special events, activities, and programs here in the city, as well as the city's use of that facility for different types of programming and other aspects related to facility maintenance and storage. Longer-term discussion is more resulted in discussion on the reviewing the current agreement, looking at comparable arrangements throughout the valley and how they are set up, and then looking at our mutual interest to see how we would like to align ourselves going forward. At that point, I do want to mention the immediate situation. Right now, TheaterWorks is experiencing some financial challenges. There has been an erosion of some of the traditional funding support that TheaterWorks has received in the form of some of their individual donations, corporate contributions, and grants and the like. In addition, having to incur the facility-related expenses of a continually aging facility. But during that time, we still are seeing that TheaterWorks as an entity is helping to push and enhance their community presence in a number of different ways, and we've seen that just in the last few months, certainly. So with that in mind, the TheaterWorks board had requested a $200,000 one-time funding from the city to assist with current funding requirements. And then in fiscal year 2014, which starts on July 1st, 2013, an additional $150,000 that would be available to help support their operations for the upcoming fiscal year. So with that in mind, of course, there were some city interests that were also that we had discussed. And so in rather extensive discussions with TheaterWorks, the following conditions and considerations were brought forward and are brought forward to you in the proposed lease amendment. And that includes increasing the number of days that the city has access to the Center for the Performing Arts, and that would include both theaters that are there, from 12 to 20 days. We should mention that we've seen in the last year or so that indeed TheaterWorks has been very amenable and has helped the city to really be able to utilize that facility much more. The calendaring is done much more in advance, and that is an item that we've formalized here in the amendment. But we also have the concept of what's called a flex date option. That is, if indeed the theater is available and if mutually agreed upon, then the city would also be able to utilize the center. In addition, some of the other items you would see in the lease amendment includes TheaterWorks, rather what we'll call interactive engagement, really being actively involved in city-affiliated events. And there's a defined amount of 7 city-affiliated events in the next fiscal year that TheaterWorks would be involved in that. In addition to that, there was discussions that TheaterWorks will help support programming in a number of different areas in what we call performance series, and that can be any types of things, whether it is music theories like in jazz, classical music, lecture series, comedy series, and the like. And so there's a guaranteed 3 series. A series represents what we call 3 different events. So in total, 9 different programming events in the next 16 months. There's also an interest in showcasing the diversity and cultural diversity activities over the next year. And then from there was a lot of discussion about how can we know exactly where the center stands, how TheaterWorks is performing, what their financial standing is. So included in the amendment is a recommendation that the city and TheaterWorks executive staff meet on a bi-monthly basis to go through the work plan that they've established, assess their financial standing, and then also talk about what we'll call some agreed-upon metrics. Judging attendance and absorption and the success of some of the programs and events and activities that are going on, and then how we can continue to improve on that going forward. And then lastly, there is some discussion about continuing our involvement. TheaterWorks has been a very active supporter of assistance to some special populations, whether that is the youth programming that they have currently in place, as well as supporting senior and developmentally disabled programs that often the city undertakes. So with that, that includes the major deal points that are included within the lease amendment, and I'll be glad to address any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Questions? Somebody touch your button and come on up on the screen. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeff, I have a question for you. First off, I definitely am in support of the arts and what they're doing over there. But I have a question about the direction as far as the $350,000 that they're requesting. Is it possible that they're looking for a $2,000 or $200,000 initial startup and then a $150,000 one-time fund after that? Is it possible that we do a $200,000 come July 1st, and then do the other $150,000 contingent on all of your other bullet points taking place?
I think that my sense, of course, is if the council was willing, we would be able to do that. My sense is that the $200,000 is an item that TheaterWorks would like to have in advance of the fiscal year beginning. So looking for that in the next upon action of this. So I think it is in TheaterWorks would express that it is in their interest to receive that prior to July 1st to help support their operations and commitments that they have. But certainly the council would be able to do that. In regard to the $150,000 that is set aside for the beginning of the next fiscal year, absolutely. You know, one concept might be we have scheduled what we call bi-monthly meetings. The first meeting would be to establish the agreed-upon metrics, look at their financial standing, and agree on how we're going to approach subsequent meetings. Maybe at that subsequent meeting, should they be meeting those metrics and addressing it, could be at that point. That's roughly around September of 2013 that we would expect that second meeting.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So the $150,000.
The reason I'd be more supportive of the $200,000 up front, and then I just want some checks and balances that I just don't want to turn over $150,000 come July 1st. Gotten some track record behind it, stating that this is working. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Carla?
Thank you. Jeff, I don't know if you can answer this, or maybe someone from TheaterWorks needs to speak, but I'd like to have some more information about how TheaterWorks actually serves the community, the city of Peoria, how the culture that they produce is of benefit to the citizens at large. Can you talk to me about some of the programs that they offer and some of the things that they do?
We have 3 speaker request forms, all from folks affiliated with TheaterWorks, so I'm sure they can answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ames?
Yeah, I have some concerns here. Actually, I go to quite a few Theater Works events, so I like that. But I believe it's, a very specialized audience here. And we just had this presentation on cost recovery in our rec program, and things that are very individualized. There's 100% expected recovery there, and we're not getting any recovery here, and it's virtually the free rent. It's $1 a month or $1 a year to lease the building, and then they do get upwards to $100,000 from our arts fund, and I know they get money from district funds, so they're getting a lot of money that really are, originally taxpayers' money. So I do have that concern. It's to put this much money into this this kind of unique program. Others have come to us, like the Challenger Space Center, and they have a kind of unique audience also, and we said no to that. And I noticed just today they've applied for a rather major grant, so they're looking for other ways to fund their operation, that Challenger Space Center. And I know we just decided not to fund what's called the greatest chess player to play in Peoria, Gary Kasparov, very famous, and he was going to come. He's going to play chess simultaneously against 30 amateurs at one of the schools here, and our judge was kind of behind this, but we decided not to support that because it was a very specialized kind of thing to pay for that. So I do have those concerns, and I'm still thinking about this proposal.
Thank you. Mr. Patena.
Thank you, Mayor. I would support Councilmember Edwards' request that we authorize the $200,000, and then we base the $150,000 on performance. And my rationale behind that is that city is actually not in the theater business, and it certainly wouldn't do any good right now to have another empty building in downtown Peoria. However, if we give them the lifeline, I think what we're expecting is different types of entertainment, keeping that building open, more nights per week, but also watching the business end of it much more closely. So essentially, I think as a council, what we would do is be kind of bringing in the reins a little bit and watching them, and then base the additional $150,000 on performance. And then if they can't perform or they just can't work that out, then I think the city has an opportunity to say, maybe we could take this theater over ourselves. I don't want to do that, but that's an option that we have. But it would give us some additional time to decide how we would want to operate the theater. So I would prefer not to do that, but I think we need to watch very closely, because I don't want to be having this conversation another year from now, saying that they need another $350,000 to stay open. So I would agree with Councilmember Edwards and support his request. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. First question is, what is staff's recommendation on this item?
Well, the staff recommendation is, per discussions that we've had in working over the last year, is to put forward the lease amendment as discussed. So it would be to the lease amendment as identified within your packet that includes the affording of $350,000, the $200,000, and then a $150,000 for fiscal year 2014, with the following conditions that we had identified here.
Okay. The $350,000, where is that money coming from?
That would be coming from the city's general fund. It is considered one-time funding in the city's general fund.
Okay. There's some language in here about reserves and contingency account. Can you explain what that means?
Yes, and specifically what we're referring to when you read the contingency account is because this was not included in the fiscal year 2014 budget, should this go forward as recommended, we would require a budget amendment from the city's contingency account into the appropriate accounts to pay for that. And so that's the budget piece. When we talk about the use of reserves, the city does have reserves that are set aside for unforeseen events or emergency situations. In this case, this was an amount above the reserve requirement that is housed in the general fund to help support that operation.
Why didn't you budget it in the regular budget? Why didn't you set aside $350,000 there?
Mayor and Council, we were in the discussions with Theater Works, and so it was in recognition of that, we had set that aside in an abundance of caution.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tyne. I just have a short statement I want to make to the mayor, council, and the audience. I support the theater. I've been supportive of the arts. I've attended the theater. I've supported the theater with taxpayer money via my district funds given to the Acacia District. But with that said, in an economy where we're hurting, the district that I represent is hurting, I can't, as a council member, support the staff recommendation. And not because I don't support the theater, because the truth of the matter is, if I explain what the current deal is in place, the components of it, first one is, since day one, the theater has been given 91 months of free rent. I support that. The city has also given over $350,000 in cash to Theater Works and close to $400,000 in in-kind services. I support it. I support the deal that's in place. But at this moment, I can't support giving any more funds to Theater Works. Thank you.
Mr. Leone.
Thank you, Mayor. My concern is, even though I support Theater Works and the arts, it's great. It comes into the city. I was here when they first built it. We own the land, we own the building, and we do give them a lot of money from the general fund. My question is that the money that we give them, what do we get in return? I know we get $1 per ticket, but we don't get that dollar. It goes right back into Theater Works. So actually, we're getting nothing. So what are we going to get in return for the money that we're going to give them?
Mayor and Council, and again, my sense is that from the staff's recommendation and from the staff's perspective, the surcharge that you were to refer to, the $1 per ticket, that goes to the facility maintenance of the center itself and not into the Theater Works operations. As far as the arrangement originally that was set up, I think the original intention was for the $1 a year lease was structured in a way to just recognize that Theater Works would be the master tenant serving for facility maintenance, the programming, and box office for the center. So I think that's where the exchange is for those services. In return, there would not be a lease amount above the $1 a year.
So just saying, all the money we give them, we don't get nothing back, and the taxpayers are paying for all this, and we get nothing back for the taxpayers. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mayor and Council, again, this is a value decision. From this perspective of staff and myself, it's a recognition that Theater Works provides a number of different types of programming. Included within that is the youth programming that they do, the various youth camps that they have, the community theater programming that they have, and serving as a box office for other events. That's generally the service that we receive as a city.
Yeah, I know we get great programs, and I think it's good for the city, and it's good for the constituents and the people, for the people in Peoria. But my question is, we don't get anything back? That's my question. I mean, if we're going to give all this money out, what are we getting back? I mean, if you own a house and you fix it all up, you're getting rent, you're getting your money back. We're giving all this money. I want to know if we're going to get anything back to put in the general fund, because we keep on giving money out and nothing coming back in. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Carla?
Thank you. I understand that this is a lot of money, but I did just want to bring up a point that is the reason that we built this Center for Culture in the first place. we spent city dollars, taxpayer dollars, to put in, on purpose, a center for the arts in the city of Peoria. And we did it to revitalize our downtown area. We did it to stimulate the kind of pedestrian traffic, if you will, that has to do with retail, bookstores, cafes, all of those kinds of things. Unfortunately, an economic downturn occurred, and we all had to stop and wait and wait and wait. And so now we're on the other side. We're coming out of that economic downturn, and it's time for us to, again, look at our vision that we had and see if it can still be realized. They're asking for a bridge to get past this tough time that we've had, but what I think we need to do is recognize the policy and the vision that the council had originally when we decided to build that building. Do we just want to throw that away and decide, okay, let's just have an empty building? That won't be a problem for downtown at all. Or do we want to continue with the vision, which was to produce something that will stimulate growth, that will stave off blight, that will bring life to the downtown area of the city of Peoria? Now, if our council wants to change their mind about their goals and about their visions and say, the downtown area in the city of Peoria really is not something that we want to spend our time, our money, our attention on anymore. We've changed our vision, and we're going to just go ahead, set that aside, and maybe look at other areas of our city as more important. Well, that's certainly a policy goal, certainly a policy decision. It's certainly a vision decision. But I think a while back we made a vision decision and a policy decision, and it had to do with this building, with this cultural center. And in my mind, I think we need to stick to this and help it through this tough time, come out on the other end, and hopefully our vision will be realized. And we will stave off the blight or the bad times or all the negative things that could possibly happen if we do just go ahead and ignore our downtown, which would be very costly.
Thank you. I'm going to make a comment, and then I'm going to go to the speaker request forms. One thing that everyone's overlooking here is the building costs $13 million. It was approved by a vote of the general public. It was not approved by the council. The council did not suddenly decide, oh, let's build a theater downtown. We can't do that. It was put on the ballot, and it was approved by the general population, voting population of the city of Peoria. At that point in time, residents of the city of Peoria decided that any bunch of fools can get together, you can put asphalt down for roads, you can build buildings, but a city needs a heart. And the decision by the residents of the city of Peoria at that point in time was to give it a heart, and the heart is downtown, and the heart is TheaterWorks. And that makes a big difference. No, we didn't bother to give money to the Challenger because, you know what? We don't own their building. We own this building, every one of us. This is our building. And if we let it go, if TheaterWorks closes, it goes dark, we've still got to maintain it. You know what we've got? We've got another dead building along Grand Avenue. Grand Avenue looks bad enough right now. I don't think we should contribute to the look of it. First public speaker is John. I'm going to ruin your name, John. John Biaggiorno, or you can correct that. I always get it wrong.
Mesquite District, and I'm also the chairman of TheaterWorks, among other things. In fact, interestingly, you were mentioning earlier about the development of the building and all. I was actually involved in that process when I was in the Arts Commission, and that's precisely the goal we had, was to revitalize the downtown and bring more of an arts presence to the city and the residents. So, I'm going to speak a little bit about the history of the organization. In that, I indicated earlier, I'm the chairman of the group, and we're proud to be the managing tenant of the Center for the Performing Arts, and proud with the degree of efficiency with which it's operated this beautiful facility over the past 6 years. As you know, however, the beautiful facility is far more expensive to operate than was originally projected. As state support has declined and costs have risen, TheaterWorks has had to use philanthropic donations to cover the core operating costs of the facility. This simply, as noted earlier, isn't sustainable. Public interest in the arts programming remains strong and growing. the Guider and McMillan theaters are often full. TheaterWorks camps and workshops have record attendance, and yet there is not sufficient revenue to sustain the organization, make all this art happen, and pay all the operating costs that the building requires. We know that the members of the council recognize the role that the arts and culture play in the quality of life in our city and the quality of the education and opportunity available to our kids. You've shown an understanding of all of that in your words and in your actions in the past, both in support for the Peoria Arts Commission, through support of the Peoria Arts Commission, of which I was a member. It termed out, and I was there for 10 years, and its programs, and in the creation of the center itself. The city of Peoria made an extraordinary investment in the creation of the center, one which TheaterWorks also contributed $200,000 of its own resources in 2007. I think that's important to note. TheaterWorks has also brought an average of $1 million a year in philanthropic revenues and general revenues into this area. And it's established the building, our building, as a major center for the performing arts in the city and in the West Valley. With the recovering economy and new programs in the offering, and an exciting new marketing and development strategy in the wings, an investment today will profoundly enhance the services provided to the community by TheaterWorks and the center. And we sincerely look forward to working with you in the future. And that's, incidentally, that's the important thing, I believe, is that I think there's a renewed partnership between the city, again, I'm a member of the city, I'm a resident, and the theater itself. That this beautiful facility, you know, it's really the pinnacle of the downtown and provides us with an opportunity to revitalize this area. As many of you might know, I'm passionate about revitalizing this area. Although I live way up in North Peoria, this is the core of the city, and we can't forget about it. We can't abandon it. We have to make sure that this area succeeds and it grows and it prospers, and it can happen. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is Dan Shea.
Hello, my name is Daniel Shea. I'm the Executive Director of TheaterWorks. Back in September of 2012, I had the honor of addressing this council, and I was able to report at that time that there had been over 800 performances and workshops and meetings and activities in that building in the previous 12 months. I can report to you now that that number is rising and quickly and will be much higher next year. This last year, our Masterworks program included a world premiere, Burning in the Night, other shows that were consistently and positively reviewed, both locally and in the metropolitan area, including in the Arizona Republic, K-Jazz, and K-Bach. YouthWorks shows like Little Shop of Horrors were so successful that the sets and costumes and props created for them have been rented by 4 other theaters in the Valley since we closed them, our version of it. Our Kids Alive and Stardust performances, our youth programs have performed at major city festivals here in Peoria, 3 or 4 of them already, as well as in Surprise and at the Wigwam Resort down in Litchfield Park. But tonight, I'm not here to talk about the past, we're here to talk about the future. The new Masterworks season includes some great musicals like Big and Ragtime, another world premiere, this time a show that's headed towards New York, a charming musical comedy called National Pastime, which has a nostalgic baseball theme, which oddly enough, we will premiere during the Cactus League season next spring. We also have already added, and this goes directly to the question about what we're doing in terms of the diversity of program, a series of 6 jazz concerts to our coming season, 4 classical chamber music concerts to the coming season. We have country music events, comedy already scheduled. These are all already scheduled. Folk music coming. And we're delighted to be able to announce that we have been selected and funded as one of the full participants in the 2nd biannual Celebration of the Arts of Latin America Festival. So this October, the theater will be given over for a week, along with major other arts organizations of the Valley, such as the Phoenix Art Museum and the Symphony and other major companies. And we will be hosting, as of right now, I can say we'll be hosting dance, music, and theater in separate performances in that week-long celebration as part of the Cala Festival. Cala Festival is supported by the Piper and Flynn Foundations. It's one of the major events in the cultural calendar. Peoria and your Peoria Center for the Performing Arts is now a player there. We recognize our unique role as stewards of a public performing arts center, and we want people to recognize what that means. We've had questions about what financially the city is getting back. I'm going to disobey orders, and I am going to point out that our dollar a year does not make it a free facility. We cover 100% of the electric bills, 100% of the water bills. Those bills have added up over our 6 years of residency to over $500,000. That's cash that TheaterWorks and its patrons and its donors have put into the operations of the Peoria Center for the Performing Arts, in addition to that $200,000 cash we anteed at the beginning of the game. We are actively exploring ways to bring more of Peoria citizens into their Performing Arts Center and ways to bring the performing arts of Peoria, say that 5 times fast, the performing arts of Peoria out into the neighborhoods, out to the citizens. As you consider this amendment to the agreement between the city and our company, we ask you to consider 2 things. The extraordinary amount that's already been accomplished over the past 6 years, considering how difficult the economy of the past 6 years have been. In the face of nearly crippling fiscal constraints, theaters have been closing around the valley, arts organizations are strained everywhere. We're not alone in that. But I also ask you to consider the potential that we still have to truly, and are achieving, in spite of all this right now, to truly establish Peoria and Old Town Peoria at that, as a go-to destination for the arts in the West Valley. We look forward to working ever more closely with the city to achieve that goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker we have is Thomas Geiger.
Good evening. I try and memorize these every time I come here, and invariably, I always bring a cheat sheet just in case I get butterflies. Honorable Mayor Barrett and City Council persons, my name is Tom Geider. Many of you know me. I am the owner of the oldest business in the city of Peoria, Wilhelm Automotive, and I come from a family who has been in this fine city for a long time. I'm a board member of TheaterWorks, and obviously I'm a citizen of Peoria in the Mesquite District, living in the far north, working in the far south. I address you tonight as a citizen of Peoria and a proud supporter of TheaterWorks and our Peoria Center for the Performing Arts, because it is truly an asset of our community. About 10 years ago, the citizens of Peoria voted to build this structure. My parents were a part of that citizen effort, and I'm thankful today for the vision that they showed by looking ahead and saying the arts are important in Peoria, and Peoria would be better with the arts. Our city council entered into a lease agreement to have the center managed by TheaterWorks, the oldest performing arts nonprofit in the West Valley, an institution dedicated to expanding a vision of Peoria with the arts. Our city council also, with citizen support, brought forward and passed an arts master plan, an acknowledgement that arts are a quality of life issue that's critical and important to the health of our city and our citizens. That is also a continuation of that same long-term vision, a city of Peoria with the arts. Our supporters include SRP, Southwest Gas, the Arizona Integrated Physicians Network, Sun Health, the Core Institute, Wilhelm Automotive, APS of McMillan, Charitable Trust, American Express, Virginia Piper Foundation, and many, many more. Foundations, corporations, charitable trusts. All of these entities speak through their grants in supporting the performing arts and arts in general as an integral part of our society and what makes life meaningful and important. It's a testimonial to the importance of Peoria with the arts. Our volunteer network over there is thousands, and our annual visits by patrons and citizens of Peoria and the West Valley in the tens of thousands. All of those are people who believe in the vision, Peoria with the arts. Our board of directors is composed of citizens of Peoria and the West Valley at large. People giving their time, their effort, and their money in support of Peoria with the arts. Citizens, city councils, corporations, foundations, volunteers, patrons, citizens, professional board of directors, all who believe in this common vision that arts and the performing arts have an important place in our city and in the West Valley. But we, unfortunately, are underfunded. The theater companies around the valley who are housed in municipal performing arts centers receive a significant annual funding from the cities in which they reside and the centers for the performing arts buildings that were built for them by their cities. That's Mesa, it's Tempe, it's Scottsdale, it's Chandler, it's Phoenix, you name them. None of these performing arts centers are self-sustaining without municipal funding and municipal support. Our capital investment as a city to build this incredible facility deserves the funding to really make it work, to make it shine as a star in the West Valley and a point of pride for Peoria. This is about a vision. It's about city councils of past and people who have put blood, sweat, and tears. It's about what's really important in life. It's about Peoria with the arts. And so I stand here tonight to endorse this agenda item, to help fund the Peoria Center for the Performing Arts, and to say, I believe in the vision to create a Peoria with the performing arts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments from the council?
Oh, go ahead. Roast me.
No, we're done with you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ames.
I wouldn't do that. Yes, and we see a nice picture of the building here. And you know, this isn't really negative about the arts. Like I said, I go to quite a few of the shows. But it's about how it's supported. And I haven't seen anything about, you know, we give this initially, I guess, $200,000. How much of that will, what proportion of that is of the total budget? Do you have that?
I'm
for
sorry,
for
Mr.
annual
Councilmember, can you
budget?
clarify the 200,000? Are you referring to? Were you referring to the $200,000 that the TheaterWorks have provided, or I'm not sure I understood?
No, the 200,000 that we're supposed to approve, and then
Understand.
150 following that.
I don't have a listing out of what the TheaterWorks budget is. Perhaps we could ask Mr. Shea to provide that for us, if you'd like.
That would be one-time infusion of about 20% of the annual budget.
Be about 20%, okay, so. Of the annual, the coming annual budget? The 200 would be?
Yeah.
Okay. And I know it's been mentioned that a lot of theaters are having trouble. Some of them were actually having trouble before the Great Recession. And some of it was they increased, like the conductors of symphonies, they increased their salaries, made them very large, you know, like $1 million salaries and things like that. And a lot of them have cut back. I know the Chicago Symphony, I believe, is cut back by a third its orchestra size, and they've cut salaries. So I'm wondering if there's ways that that business here can be managed at less of a cost. I see a chuckle about that. I'm trying to bring this into a business discussion here. Yes.
I came to TheaterWorks because of my excitement about the potential of this organization. I came after 7.5 years as executive director of Phoenix Theater, which is the oldest arts organization in the state of Arizona, and has an operating budget of about $4.5 million. It occupies a city-owned facility, Phoenix Theater, owned by the city of Phoenix. And it also pays no rent. It also doesn't pay for the electricity.
You're not paying rent now either.
No,
that's
but
not
we
the
do.
issue, right?
But we do cover the utilities and many of the costs of the theater, which would devolve back upon the city if we were not there. My point, though, is that Phoenix Theater does 6 main stage shows, 4 youth shows, and has summer camps, and they do it on about $4.5 million. TheaterWorks offers 6 main stage shows, 4 youth shows, puppet shows, a full range of summer camps, and the various programs we do here with the community, and we do it on a budget of about $1.1 million. My staff full-time at Phoenix Theater was 34. Our staff full-time here is 9.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're looking for the fat to cut, it's right here, and that's about it.
Well, that...
yeah, I'd work on that.
I'd appreciate that. I don't know, I'm kind of torn here. My real concern is that, we've heard about this is going to revitalize downtown. It really hasn't done that. I don't see that it's necessarily going to do that. We built this city campus here. That was the initial thing that was supposed to revitalize the downtown here. That didn't do that. But independent of that, I'm not looking at it for that reason. It is a nice facility, and I do know you participate with a lot of cultural events that the city puts on here. And so but I do have a concern that, we start really picking up the costs here, and then next year we have the same situation. And so I'm wondering if there's a way we can clarify some of that. And I'm not looking for an empty building here. I don't think this is like the Coyotes in Glendale, but they have ticket sales problems too, and then that's one of the issues there in terms of supporting that team. And so you're asking us to help support the good work that you do, and so I'm still thinking about that. I know there was a different proposal here. I don't know if that's going to come up or not.
Thank you. Ms. Carla?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to call for the question, please.
Okay. This is 18R. Call for the question takes precedent. This is 18R lease agreement amendment, TheaterWorks. Could I have a motion? Do I have a second? Moved by Ms. Carlett, seconded by Mr. Patena. This is 18R, lease agreement amendment, TheaterWorks. Please vote. Clerk will record the votes.
I'm still waiting for Councilmember Ames to vote.
Third time here?
Yeah, you're from Chicago, right?
I did live there. Still waiting for me?
I am.
It's not working now.
Poll the council.
Hard time with me.
Poll the council.
Councilmember Ames.
No.
Councilmember Patena.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Rivera.
No.
Councilmember Edwards.
No.
Councilmember Carlott.
Yes.
Councilmember Leone.
No.
Mayor Barrett.
Yes. Fails 4-3. Next item up is 19R, public hearing, liquor licenses, various locations. First is a new restaurant liquor license, Series 12, for the Haymaker Restaurant Company, located at 24762 North Lake Pleasant Parkway. Second one is a new restaurant liquor license, Series 12, for Quintero Golf Club, located at 16752 West State Route 74. Third is person and location transfer for an on-sale beer and wine liquor license, Series 7 for Quintero, located at 16752 West State Route 74. Got a staff report.
Yes, sir. Properties were posted in accordance with Arizona statutes. All reviewing departments recommend approval. All the fees were paid, and no comments were received from the public.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Does anyone want to comment on these liquor license applications? Anyone in the audience care to comment? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Council action, discussion and possible action to recommend approval. Could I have any questions or comments? Could I have a motion? Moved by Ms. Carlett, second by Mr. Edwards. This is 19R, liquor license at various locations. Please vote. The clerk will record the votes. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next is 20R, public major planned area development amendment, 67th Avenue, and Cactus Road.
Chris Huck, as our Planning Community Development Director, will present this item.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request by Garrett Walker Homes to amend the existing planned area development zoning on a 19-acre infill site. The site is located at the northwest corner of 67th Avenue and Cactus. At the hard corner, there is an existing gas station. North and west of the site is existing single-family residential neighborhoods. South of the site are a number of commercial uses, credit union, also including the ACES Charter School, and then, of course, east of 67th is the city of Glendale. The request is threefold. There's an existing entitlement for a residential development on the property. It's a development that was entitled back in 2006 for a development called Gardens on Cactus. So this request is to amend that development form from what was called a courtyard cluster. That's essentially a type where you have 3 or 4 homes on a limited short common drive. And the request is to change that to a more traditional single-family community of detached homes. The Gardens on Cactus had a minimum square footage of 3,000 square feet lot size. This project, called Peoria Village, would range from 4,500 square feet all the way up to 12,000 square feet. The corresponding density that's proposed here would drop from the originally entitled 111 units down to 83 units. So that's a corresponding drop from 5.75 units per acre down to 4.3 units per acre. This graphic illustrates a proposed development plan for Peoria Village. The associated, we also have just a note, we have a preliminary plat that's also in review and that's contingent upon this case. A few of the facts of the case, again, 83 lots on 19 acres. Lot sizes I mentioned, they range from a minimum lot size of 4,500, they range up to 12,360, being the largest. Most of them are around the 4,500 square foot range. All lots would be 1 or 2 story homes, with the exception of all lots along the northern boundary, abutting the residential community to the north. They would all be limited to 1 story. In terms of open space, the design review manual requires at least 9% of the open space, the active open space. They would have 10.5%, 1.9 acres, for a total open space of about 14%. In terms of access to the development, there are 2 points of access, one at the southwest corner at Cactus Road, and the other one at the northeast corner at 67th. The primary entry, of course, would be on Cactus Road. In terms of the development, the applicant, they would be required to improve the half street along both 67th and Cactus. When I say half street, I mean curb, gutter, sidewalk, landscaping, and streetlights. This graphic illustrates the general plan land use designation for the property and also the existing zoning. As you know, we review rezones against the general plan designation for conformance. The underlying land use designation is residential medium, which is 5 to 8 units per acre. This is a designation that, of course, was put on the site back in 2006 with the previous Gardens on Cactus development. But this is a designation that notes areas where small lot, single family, patio homes, some multifamily might be appropriate, particularly areas where we see there could be some appropriate land use transition where it's around commercial. So the requested change to the PAD is in conformance with this designation. The density is a little under what the range is, but we believe the product type and the lot size is consistent. We also believe that this project provides for appropriate land use transition, particularly near a major arterial intersection. And we believe that the change to more of a traditional single-family type development is more compatible with the existing single-family neighborhoods than the previous proposal. As you know, the rezone requires a citizen participation program. We noticed, we sent a notice of application and notice of hearing to all property ownerships within 600-foot radius, including all registered HOAs within 1 mile. There was a neighborhood meeting that was held on February 28th at Apostles Lutheran Church. There were 15 attendees at the meeting, and of the 15 attendees, they represented 10 households. The attendees at the meeting generally preferred the proposed plan to the previous plan. There were a lot of inquiries from that meeting, and as a result of that meeting, we've got a petition that 8 of the 10 households that were at that meeting were in support of the project. This item went to the Planning and Zoning Commission recently. There were no speakers present in support or opposition. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this case. And therefore, subject to the findings in your staff report and conditions 1 through 18, staff is recommending approval of this case. I'll take any questions.
Not yet, you won't. First of all, I'm going to open a public hearing. This is a public hearing on the major planned area development amendment, 67th Avenue and Cactus Road. Would anyone in the public care to comment on this application? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Questions or comments from the council? Right, Mr. Ames.
Yes. So this has gone back to the size density it was prior. Is that right? Is that?
No, Councilman Ames, the existing entitlement for the project, the existing zoning allows lots as small as 3,000 square feet.
Right.
This would amend it, drop the density, and make the lot sizes larger and more of a traditional
And
single-family
fewer
project.
homes.
Correct.
Okay. And do you feel it was a good representation of citizens? I've chatted with a few. They seemed happy.
Of the attendees at the meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, most of, like, as I mentioned, most of the questions were inquiries as to what this project was proposing, and I think a lot of people were maybe not aware of what the existing entitlement on the site was. But once they found out, they believed it was a good change.
Okay. Quite a different reaction than to another area in my district, right?
That's correct.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a motion? It didn't pop up. Mr. Rivera?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. Mr. Hawkins, can you go back a couple of slides? Right there, that's fine. The improvements, who's picking up the costs for those?
Vice Mayor Rivero, the improvements would be a developer-related cost. They would be required to improve those street sections.
All right. And is there going to be an intersection on the Cactus entrance? I mean, like a light?
I'm sorry?
Traffic light? Is there going to be?
No, sir, there's no traffic light proposed there.
Okay, and on 67th?
Not there as well, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by James, seconded by Mr. Leone. This is 20R, Major Planned Area Development Amendment, 67th Avenue and Cactus Road. Please vote. The clerk will record the vote. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next is 21R, public hearing, fiscal year 2014 final budget adoption.
And Katie Gregory, the Deputy Director of Finance and Budget, will make the presentation on the next 2 items.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight is the final budget adoption. And although it's not the absolute final step, it is a culmination of a lot of hard work by city staff and this council in reviewing a number of things throughout the year. 2 weeks ago, council approved the tentative budget, and that, as you know, set the maximum appropriation for the fiscal year of 2014. It is important to note that in the budget process in Peoria, it doesn't just happen through the months of April through June. This is an ongoing process for the city as we reach out to you periodically through the year to get your guidance and direction on a number of important policy items and then bring those back as part of a budget package. Throughout this past year, council has been provided a number of updates on the city's financial condition, growth planning, and economic development initiatives and investments. In addition, the council, in its council budget workshop, had an opportunity to fully review the recommended fiscal year 2014 budget and adopted the tentative budget and the 10-year capital improvement program at your last council meeting. In March, council reaffirmed their council goals for the next 2 years. These goals set direction for staff and included areas such as community building, which included things like balancing our community amenities, including special events and our Community Park 3 and P83 improvements. It included some of our community-oriented services and partnerships with not-for-profits, and that is reflected in the budget through our new Human Services Coordinator position, enhancing our current services, in providing our over-the-counter review for economic development services and some of the other initiatives that we're accomplishing in those areas, continuing with our preserving our natural environment and total planning efforts, as well as a very important piece of the budget includes our economic development efforts to work towards broadening our economic base in the city, and lastly, leadership and image throughout the city and promoting ourselves as regional players in the valley. But it wasn't long ago when we were in a significant and protracted economic downturn, and Peoria, like other cities, was faced with shrinking revenues coupled with an abrupt halt to a lot of our growth activities. Over the last 5 years, cities across the country have employed a number of tactics to address their financial condition. You could Google any one of these and you would come up with pages and pages of examples, both on a local and national level. But Peoria and some other cities took a very different approach. You've seen this before, but we did proactively address revenue shortfalls through regular and progressive expenditure reductions across the entire organization. It wasn't easy, but by dealing with our structural deficit early and often, as you can see, and by following our financial principles and by harnessing the creativity and innovation of staff to create efficiencies within our operations, we were able to emerge from the downturn with a positive financial outlook. A key tenet throughout the downturn was to continue providing core services while minimizing our impacts to our residents. We did not increase any of our sales or property taxes throughout the downturn. We had minimal user fee increases, primarily in the areas of community services, some of which we discussed earlier this evening. We had some modest utility rate increases, but recognizing the economic downturn did not make utility adjustments during the worst portion of the downturn, and we're able to offset a good portion of those utility rates with a 13% reduction in our residential solid waste fee. There were no layoffs or furloughs or wage reductions to our employees. We continued to fund very important capital improvement projects, such as Community Park 2, the Beardsley Connector, Happy Valley Road, Lake Pleasant Parkway, and we were able to continue investing in our neighborhoods through our Community Works program. And lastly, we continued to grow our economic base through our support and funding of a number of various economic development initiatives throughout the city. Additionally, in 2010, the city engaged in a citizen survey to gauge our citizens' level of satisfaction with city services and amenities. Staff used this as a tool to focus our resources and to address areas for improvement. In 2013, the picture was much improved. When we surveyed our citizens, we received overwhelmingly positive ratings on our services and our amenities in the city. And this further demonstrates the citizen satisfactions with those services we provide and the service levels that we're providing. You may recall this slide, and as we prepared for the 2014 budget, we provided you with some key economic indicators that really kind of sets the pace for recovery in Arizona. It includes things like employment, housing, and consumer confidence. And as you recall, we said that the outlook was that the economy was moving in a positive direction, but that it was moving at a very slow recovery. That it will take some time before the jobs are returned to pre-recession levels, before the housing market turns, and before the commercial markets re-emerge. And that was translated into what we called our financial outlook. And that projected that we'd have modest revenue growths going forward over our 5-year forecast. Yet we continue to have very tight department budgets, and they're holding the line on their budgets and looking for ways to contain costs and minimize the expenditure growth. We also had very limited new capacity, both in our 5-year operating forecast as well as in our capital budget. But we've been able to address many of the priorities, not only shared by council and their council policy goals, but also from results of our citizen survey and other items that we use to look at as our cornerstone. But we also required creative solutions to a lot of these increasing demands. And as we come out of this recovery, we do have increases in costs, increased demands, and we continue to be creative and try to create those efficiencies related to those. So we took what many would consider a fiscally conservative approach. We continue to be strategic in our budget process and validating progress towards our operational goals and objectives, really focusing on meeting council goals and maintaining our core services and core service levels. We strive for a balance in our allocation of resources and equity in services and amenities across the city. We are fiscally responsible in that we're fiscally responsible in that we do recognize that we do continue to have a small bridge early in the forecast, but as we see those things improving, we're not adding significant amounts to the budget, recognizing that we need to be financially responsible as we look forward and be prepared for what's coming in the next few years. And lastly, we did incorporate some modest wage increases in recognition of employee contributions and in reflection of remaining competitive within our workplace. So we provided you with a balanced budget that addresses your council priorities and includes a number of important capital projects. It supports the city's operational needs and continues to provide our citizens with superior services as we look forward in 2014. Key objectives in this budget is to maintain our financial integrity and follow our principles of sound financial management. We are customer service focused and want to be responsive to our citizens. We strive for balance again in our service delivery. We want to make sure we have the systems, structures, and resources in place to be ready to serve both our current and future businesses and residents. We focus on workforce planning, managing workforce costs, succession planning, leadership training, employee engagement, and want to remain as an employer of choice within the Valley. Of course, economic development is a very important aspect, and there are many items in the budget that reflect that. But more than anything, we really strive to maximize the value of every taxpayer dollar we receive in the way that we allocate resources in the budget. So by the numbers, the fiscal year 2014 budget is a $468 million budget. It represents about a 1.6% decrease over the prior fiscal year. It's made up of 4 main categories. The operating budget is approximately 49%, or $229 million, and of that, about $119 million is our general fund. And our general fund represents about a 6% increase, our overall operating budget is about a 6% increase over fiscal year 13. The capital budget totals about $154 million for fiscal year 14. And the last 18% is split evenly between debt service and contingency, both coming in at approximately $42 million. We talked about this a little earlier, but just as a reminder, we budget contingency appropriation in various funds to give us the budget authority to spend for unforeseen items, emergencies, or mid-year adjustments that we need to make. And only the council has the authority to allow us to expend those funds. In summary, the fiscal year 14 budget is a balanced budget that reflects our sound financial policies and does not require the use of reserves. It maintains our core services and focuses resources on our council priorities and our community needs. It includes some modest additions to maintain our service levels and to address the operating commitments that we've made through our capital improvement program. It does not require any sales or property tax increases, and nor does it include any utility rate adjustments with the exception of the reclaimed water rate. Very small reclaimed water rate adjustment. And finally, the budget does include resources to complete and support, again, a number of very important capital projects. So tonight, Council will hold a public hearing on the final budget, followed by final budget adoption. After that, we'll hold the public hearing on the property tax levy.
Thank you very much. Next is public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing. Does any member of the audience care to comment on the fiscal year 2014 final budget adoption? Anyone care to comment? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Questions or comments from council? Mr. Ames?
Yes. You know, I appreciate a lot what's in the budget, and I heard some things about maximizing taxpayer value, and I think that's good. But as some of you know, I'm a little bit concerned because I know at the last couple of months before, while you were doing the budget, 1.4 million additional revenues were projected. And I propose that we look at some tax relief for citizens, looked at the grocery tax. And that wasn't considered. And so I'm concerned that, because when I first came on the council in 2007, my first budget hearings, I see 95 new positions. And when I talked to the city manager, he said, we got to get ahead of the curve. And I don't want us to get back into the situation. And you did say that, you know, we want to carefully look at our finances and look at taxpayer value. But I don't want us to get back into the situation where we start growing staff beyond what's needed to do a good job of providing services. And I saw in our recent survey that citizens said we did an excellent job, and that was on a smaller staff. And I do know from having studied bureaucracies, you don't want bureaucracies to grow bigger than the needed number of employees to do a good job. People then start focusing on other things, and it's not efficient. So I want to be sure. I'm going to vote yes for this budget because there are a lot of good things in it that I like. But you do know that I'm kind of putting my fist down here, that next year I want to look at, if we are looking at taxpayers, do we give some taxpayer money back? We haven't increased taxes, so that's good. Or do we look at certain programs and what programs and what staff do we need? We're going to be growing in size. We will need some additional staff for that purpose. But I want us to be very careful and really adhere to the things that I heard you say that we're going to do as a city and that we've done during the deep recession, and we manage things well, and I want us to continue that kind of management. So that's my comments about the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carlin.
Thank you. I have something different to say than that. I don't see any need to give you a lecture. You have presented us with a budget that is 1.6% decrease over last year's budget, even though we are starting to come out of the recession. And during that recession, we cut in every way possible and looked for every single efficiency possible. So to actually even decrease this budget more now when we are starting to get back into areas where we need to cover for growth, it's pretty amazing, actually. And so I would really like to congratulate staff for coming back with this budget, and all of us. You know, we have all worked really hard on this, study session after study session after study session, to come up with a budget that is not only beneficial for taxpayers, but it's beneficial for the city of Peoria for the long term, and continues to work with the council's goals and continues to look at the vision for the future, which is very, very important. And we cannot take our eye off of that, off of the goals for the future and the prize, or else, you know, we're going to be managing the day-to-day tasks, which is clearly the job of the city manager and the staff. So I would just like to thank you. I also am going to vote in favor of this budget, and I really, again, would like to say congratulations. 1.6% decrease in a year where we're starting to grow again is just amazing. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank our city manager and our staff for putting this budget together. I know it's a lot of work, and I appreciate the job that you do. While I support many of the components in this budget, from some of the new positions to the special events and a lot of other stuff in the budget, I support it. There was an opportunity for the City Council and the staff to work on giving some relief to the taxpayer. That didn't happen. I know we're looking forward to working on that issue in the next budget, but because of that, I will not be supporting this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leone?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to congratulate the budget staff. Since I've been on the budget, since I've been on the council in 1999, they've always done a great job. And they do think of the taxpayers and how we can save money and what we have to cut. And the city is running real well with all this stuff that's been going on, and we've been working hard to keep this budget going. And I just want to congratulate the budget staff, and like I say, every year they just do a tremendous job, and all I can say is just keep it up, and you're doing a great job, and lots of luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ames?
Yes, I would just like to make a clarification. We heard a 1.6 decrease, but most of that has occurred because of the capital budget, not the operating budget, not the money for staff, and not the salary increases. What you mentioned were modest, but I believe they're a little higher than what the average citizen is getting in his job. So, in fact, on the operating side, it was an increase of 6%, is that right? What was it?
Yes, that is correct.
And then a decrease of apparently 7.6 on the capital side, right? So
There was about a $16 million decrease from last year's capital program to this
so
year's
the
capital
decrease we
program in
see
the
is
first year.
really because of the decrease in capital budgets, and I think next year we have to look at that. Are we cutting out our future in terms of that to grow the operating budget? We have to look at a balance between the two, in my opinion. Thank you.
Mr. Patena?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thanks to the Budget Office for their hard work. I know that these budgets get scrubbed at the staff level, they get scrubbed at the director level, they get scrubbed at the deputy city manager level, at the city manager level. So by the time we see these budgets, they've been worked over pretty good. So I'm pretty confident that there's not a lot of huge staff issues that are going to be going on in terms of hiring staff, and I think our management team watches that pretty closely. I read an article in one of our local papers today that there were some people that were surprised that the city of Peoria actually has a cut in their budget, and they wanted to know how is that going to happen, and go from just core services that we've provided during the economic downturn to getting additional services and amenities. I think it's a great question because there are some citizens out there that really want some more amenities. That's why they live in this city. It's why they want this. It's why it makes Peoria special. So I think next year, even though we have to hold the line on budgets and watch our taxpayers' dollars, I think we need to start looking at making sure that our citizens get something beyond core services. I think they expect more, and I think they deserve more. And with that, I will support this budget.
Thank you very much. This is 21R, fiscal year 2014 final budget adoption. Could I have a motion? Moved by Ms. Carlett, seconded by Mr. Edwards. Please vote. The clerk will record the vote. One dissension, that was Mr. Rivero. Next up, otherwise it's approved, I'm sorry. Next up, 22R, public hearing, fiscal year 2014 property tax levy.
Thank you. Again, Mayor and Council, property taxes in Arizona are really broken up into two categories: the primary tax levy, which is used to support general government purposes, and the secondary tax levy, which is used to pay debt service on our general obligation bonds issued by the city. In calculating the levy, the total city valuation is multiplied by the tax rate to determine what the levy is. As stated a little earlier, the city does not propose any changes to our property tax rate, maintaining our rate of $1.44 per $100 of assessed valuation. This is based on a 19-cent primary and a $1.25 secondary tax rate. This slide just generally shows how we compare with many of our neighboring jurisdictions with our tax rate. We may see some of these change in the upcoming year, as some jurisdictions have elected to do what's called floating the tax rate to achieve a consistent levy. And as such, our relative position may change on this, but this is where we stand as of the fiscal year 13 budget. This here shows just kind of a history again, but more importantly shows kind of how the average residential property tax bill is broken up. The city receives about 13% of the residents' total bill, special districts in Maricopa County about 32%, and the school districts receive about 55% of the overall tax bill. This slide here shows the history of our property tax levies, and as you can see, we have had a considerable reduction in our levy since the peak of 2010. As you can see on this chart, in the growing years, as collections went up, we were able to reduce rates. So we went from $1.59 in 2005 to $1.49 to $1.44. So we did provide, we did make a decision to reduce rates as we were growing. And then you can see as we started to see the tax levy reduce, we kept our rates where they were, therefore showing us or receiving a smaller amount year to year over the downturn as assessed valuations went low. You can see here from fiscal year 13 to fiscal year 14, the difference for our primary levy is that our tax collections will reduce by $156,000, and our secondary levy, our tax collections will reduce by about $1 million. Over that 5-year time frame, we've actually reduced our overall collections by about $10 million. So we've collected $10 million less from our citizens over the last 5 years. So that concludes the presentation on the tax levy, and now council will be asked to hold a public hearing on that.
Okay. Thank you very much. This is a public hearing on the, open a public hearing for fiscal year 2014 property tax levy. Would anyone in the audience care to comment on the proposed tax levy? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. There is no council action required on this at this time. Next, 23R, proposed annexation, Sun City West Fire District.
Thank you, Mayor Bratton. Before we go to the next item, I just want to also add my voice to the council comments to thank Katie and Barry for your excellent work on the budget, as well as Brent and everyone in the finance and budget department. You've done a fantastic job, as always. I also want to thank the staff leadership team. That's all the directors and deputy city managers who have also worked very, very hard on this budget. And finally, I want to thank the council. Your diligence, your hard work going through the budget, and the relationship that you have with the staff, and the iterative process that we go through to put together the final budget is very much appreciated, and thank you. With this, I will now turn it over to Deputy City Manager Susan DeLuden, who will lead the next item.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We're bringing to you tonight a resolution that we're requesting the Mayor and Council approve, disapproving a purported annexation that is proposed in our northern Peoria unincorporated area. This annexation area has been proposed by Sun City West Fire District, and it's coming to us really by happenstance. We were not informed in true intergovernmental relation fashion by the Sun City West Fire District. In fact, we learned about this through an inquiry from the Independent newspaper wanting to know how Peoria felt about having a outside special district annexed within the territory intended to be part of the city of Peoria in the future. So we had not heard of this from the district, even though we've been in a variety of talks with them over the past year, trying to resolve the 303 area annexation. So we were really quite disappointed in the actions of the district, and proceeded to provide an informational brochure out to the area to let the people know that this wasn't an annexation push generated by the city, but that it was being proposed by the district. And we went to the district board, who had a meeting on Monday, May 6th, to discuss this and listen to testimony. And in that meeting, their board of directors took action to propose this annexation, saying that they thought it was a really good deal for the district because Peoria would be providing the services where they would be gathering up the tax resources. And of course, this is not an acceptable policy where our Peoria residents will pay for the fire services for another area. So we as staff are very opposed to that. Chris Hawkes can give you a real clear idea of what that area is. And what I'd like to give you is an idea that we're doing a variety of things, a multi-pronged approach to fight this effort by the district. We're conducting an information outreach to the public. Our fire chief, Bobby Reese, has having meetings with the consortia that governs the automatic aid, which also would be potentially harmed by this arrangement. We have updated with our Office of Communication the website on annexation, and we have new improved information ready to go. We have offered and will continue to offer to have neighborhood meetings with the residents in that area to let them know we'd love it if they wanted to join the city, but we are not actively pursuing them. But we want them to have good information to make a real good, thoughtful decision for their property. And we also are proceeding to take some recommended legal action, which our city attorney will talk about here in just a minute. And part of that legal action would be you're taking action on this resolution tonight. So let's take a look at the map of the area. Our Planning and Development Director, Chris Hawkes, will give you kind of the details on how this annexation process works.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I turn it over to Steve to talk about the purpose and effect of the resolution, I thought I'd provide a few background remarks on it. Again, this is a bid by the Sun City West Fire District to annex about 1.6 square miles of a county island that's completely surrounded by the city of Peoria. This is an area, and I'll show you a map in a minute, but this is an area that's currently served by Rural Metro. And we have a mutual aid agreement with Rural Metro whereby assistance is provided across jurisdictional boundaries if there's an event that local services are not able to provide. This area is also within our planning area. Now, our planning area is a boundary that extends beyond our city limits, and it's an area that we negotiate with surrounding jurisdictions. So Surprise has their planning area, Glendale, and so forth. And these are areas that we plan. We look at future land use, circulation, and these are areas that we believe someday would likely be within the city. And so this area, as I mentioned, is for decades has been wholly within the city of Peoria's planning area. So as Susan mentioned, there was a meeting on May 6th. So what was that meeting all about? That was a Sun City West Board of Directors meeting that they held. And in that meeting, they had a public hearing. They heard testimony. There was approximately 70 people in attendance, roughly half against and half seemingly in support. The half that were against, a lot of them were from Sun City West proper, those areas. What the action they took was they approved what's called a boundary impact statement. That's basically a statement that identifies what the annexation area is, a legal description, and so forth. And they authorized the district to collect petitions for the annexation. Now, a special district annexation is very similar to a city annexation attempt in terms of the test. So you see on the screen they would have to satisfy 2 tests to bring the annexation back for approval. 50% or more of the property ownerships would have to sign a petition in support, and property owners representing 50% or more of the assessed valuation. And they have 1 year to collect those valid signatures. Now this graphic illustrates the proposed annexation area. So you see the area in yellow, again, 1.6 square miles. The area is certainly not contiguous to the existing Sun City West Fire District boundary. If you look at the county island just west of the area and highlighted in yellow, that's roughly where the boundary is. I'll show you a better map on the next slide. But when you look at the area is predominantly developed already residential in the county. It's predominantly 1 acre lots, and there are some communities of half acre lots within that area. You'll also note on the map in red along Lake Pleasant Parkway at Pinnacle Peak, this is our Pinnacle Peak substation. It's approximately 0.4 of a mile from the nearest point on the annexation area. But this is the map that I think really speaks for itself. I mean, I could probably end the presentation right here if we look at the map. The area in purple is the city limits of the city of Peoria. Now, it does not include the planning area, it's just the city limits. The area in green is the current Sun City West Fire District district boundary. So when you look at the annexation area, which is in orange in the middle, you'll note that our nearest fire station within 0.4 miles. We also have a station on Jomax, 2.4 miles. And if you can compare that with Sun City West Fire District, and you look west of La Agua Fria River, right, south of Loop 303, they have two facilities within Sun City West District proper. That's about, the nearest one is about 7 miles away, and if you look at, in terms of if you just Google the amount of time it takes to arrive at a location, you're talking about 15 to 20 minutes versus about 1 minute for the nearest Peoria substation. So I think this map is quite telling. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Steve. He's going to summarize some of the points in opposition and talk about the purpose and need of the resolution.
Mayor, Council, the resolution before you tonight is a resolution expressing disapproval and authorizing the staff to take necessary measures to contest this annexation. The statutes do allow for special districts to allow to annex certain areas that are not directly contiguous. And looking at this, we believe that Sun City has actually not complied with the statutes, and this annexation would violate the statute. Certainly, if they elect to proceed with this, the city would have the ability to file a special action in Superior Court and ask the court to enjoin the district from annexing and enjoin the county assessor from recognizing any such annexation. And it would certainly, hopefully that won't become necessary. What the initial intent here would be to disapprove this annexation, advise the district, the state land department, and the county assessor that we disapprove it. And what you normally would expect in these types of things, much like we do with other cities, is that a government would come to you first and want to discuss this and want to cooperatively talk about this versus surprising you by an article in the newspaper. And that's normally how local governments generally work. And so the purpose here would be to express the city's disapproval, and we certainly would take some initial steps, particularly both with the district as well as the county assessor as well as the state land department, to indicate the city's disapproval of this annexation, and then we would be reporting back if additional steps would be necessary. And obviously, if the ultimate step would be for the city to consider litigation in the Superior Court, which we would be able to do in-house, but ultimately that would be something that we could consider.
Mr. Ames?
Yeah, I see that Sun City West Fire District has the opportunity and means to, maybe not the means, as you just said, to annex this area, but what is their motive for wanting to annex this area? Do we know?
Yes,
is there some monetary gain on their part? Is that what it is?
They're a special district, and the special district is limited in its ability and to collect revenues, and in its taxing authority. To grow the district, it needs to annex and to continually fuel new property tax to maintain the services it has. And currently, the district is financially strapped.
This district property tax, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they don't have other revenue mechanisms like the city that Ms. Gregory just went over, sales tax and shared revenues and income tax, such items like that they don't have. So they rely solely on property tax, and their main goal is residential. And the idea is that we would supposedly back up the services through a mutual aid agreement.
Yeah, there we are, right next door. Yeah.
because of our proximity to the area. So the motive was very clearly stated. I'm not putting words in the mouth of the board. It was clearly stated that it was a financial benefit.
We want more property tax.
Yeah.
And they're just annexing them in terms of a fire district? Just that, okay.
Yeah, the fire services are annexed. It still remains unincorporated
Still a
Maricopa
county island.
County, yeah. And the people don't get all the other great services of the city of Peoria for about twice as much tax dollar. Because they pay about twice as much to the districts. It's $271 versus our $1.44 that the council and the mayor just saw for one service.
Before I call the next, I've got a quick question. I remember several years ago, especially out in Gilbert, this issue arose. Are we obligated to respond to if Sun City West Fire District is successful, are we obligated to respond to a fire in their annexed area?
The automatic aid agreement would not apply, and Chief Reese has been talking with the consortium about that, so.
Mayor, Council, the old agreement, the old contract is a little vague, and because of that reason, the consortium, the E-Board of the consortium, has revised the contract that starts this year, and for the next couple of years, depending on where you're at in the system, you go into the new contract. But the new contract clarifies the whole auspices or the whole intent of the automatic aid system. And in one of the paragraphs, it clearly states that one jurisdiction will not benefit on the backs of another jurisdiction. Makes it very, very clear. And because of the confusion of old contract versus new, yesterday I met with the E-Board of the consortium and brought the question forward for their interpretation, which they're going to rule. And Sun City West was also present, and the only argument they had was a financial argument. And the automatic aid agreement is very clear that it is not a business model, that it is a response model. The chair read off of the new contract as to the intent overall of the contract, which is that each jurisdiction should supply their own fire equipment and their own personnel, and by doing so, that as we cross boundaries, everybody benefits by the consortium. But the intent is that everybody supplies their own fire service to a high degree. Sun City West has no intent of supplying any fire service to this area. So they made it very clear that they're going to get a tax base, and they expect the citizens of Peoria to pay for the fire service under the automatic aid agreement. I think that is a very distorted view of the agreement, and therefore I'm asking for a ruling that I think will come back in our favor.
Okay, because if I remember right, in the Gilbert situation, Gilbert said they wouldn't respond except for life-threatening situations.
Correct. And that's the other thing that I brought to the board, is I wanted a clarification on the interpretation that given the situation and given other situations around the valley that have been very similar, that the municipality has no obligation, has no legal obligation to respond into those areas. So they're going to come back. But Gilbert was a good example because Tempe has been another one that in the past refused to respond into rural areas because they got sued by the businesses there that they had no business coming in. And Tempe took a very hard approach that they would not respond, period, into some of the rural areas, and Guadalupe being included in the past. Gilbert did the same thing. That unincorporated area, or the county island that became a district, a fire district, then negotiated with the city of Gilbert to provide the service. What the city of Gilbert did is they prorated what the cost to every individual was in the city and charged that to the county island, plus made them provide and pay for a fire truck, two water tenders, and all the personnel that went with that in order to support that area, because with the personnel responding from Gilbert, it left pockets for the number of calls that it created. So they needed another fire truck that would be an alternative vehicle that would rove around the city to provide the service where the pockets were created by providing the service for that unincorporated area or county island.
Because I remember, this was years ago, I remember talking to some of the fire folks. It's back when I used to work for a living at the paper. It's difficult to stand around and watch a house burn.
Yes, it is.
But they did it.
We don't intend to watch it burn.
We'll see. Ms. Carla.
Thank you. Well, I hope the Sun City West Fire Department is watching this evening, because they need to understand that their actions are shameful. Shameful. They went into these areas, they misrepresented themselves, they misrepresented the city of Peoria, all because they have outgrown their ability to gain more money. So, you know, it's a financial decision, a bad one, an unethical one, one where they are actually misleading to get financial gain. What is that called? Fraud? Is that called fraud? Yes. And, you know, I have to say, in the city of Peoria, we still think of our firefighters as the good guys, as heroes, as people who show up when we need help. Sun City West Fire Department, you are not only causing a black eye on your own district, but you give all firefighters a bad name. Is this what the industry is turning into? Not in Peoria. It is not happening in Peoria. We don't condone this. This isn't how we act. This isn't who we are. We will fight this because it's wrong, and it is taking advantage of our citizens. You don't have any intention of taking care of them and providing the services that you are saying that you're going to provide. And we will do everything that we can to stop you. Watch us.
Thank you, Ms. Raines.
Yes, you're in jeopardy, Sun City West, of course. I do have some questions, though. This area is served by Rural Metro right now? Do they drop out of the picture then if this happened? I mean, and do we go to the aid when they can't do something, right?
Councilmember Ames, members of the council, the areas are served by Rural Metro right now. Obviously, there could be a time if there was sufficient service provided by a governmental entity that Rural Metro might make a business decision to change that. But right now, currently, these areas are served by Rural Metro. They're also within the PMT's Certificate of Need and Necessity for ambulance service. So they have ambulance service as well. And certainly, the city is prepared to object with the Department of Health Services regarding any expansion of Sun City West ambulance service to this. It would create a completely disjointed system if you were having ambulances dispatched from miles, 20 minutes away, when you already have an existing service provider, PMT, that serves the area around the county island, and not to have them serve the areas inside. And but the area does have both ambulance service and fire service.
I read sometime in the county islands that people have a choice. They don't have to pay for it, or they do. Is it property tax right now with in that?
Councilmember Ames, generally there's two ways that fire service is handled in county islands. One is in certain county islands, like in Gilbert, the people can form a county island fire district and levy a property tax on themselves, and then contract with the adjacent city or another entity to provide fire service. The other way is for private providers such as Rural Metro to do it by subscription, and they then respond within that county island. And Arizona counties do not have the legal authorization to provide fire protection. So it's either done in the county islands by one of those two means.
And Are we looking to annex this area into Peoria? We say it's in our planning zone, so.
I believe that it would be a wise decision on both the part of the citizens in there and the city to move forward and annex as many properties as wanted to come in. Currently, the proximity is right there. They're within our service area for much more immediate police response. They can use out-of-resident fee-based services such as the library and some of our park and rec services, but they would get those services at a reduced cost, and then we would have more participating taxpayers also, and voters and participants in neighborhood associations and other civic endeavors, and we wouldn't have a big gap in the middle of our city that's not an efficient service delivery pattern. It's really quite inefficient, but that's really a personal decision of the property owners in there. The city has always given staff the policy direction that should anyone want to seek annexation, that we would process those. We don't charge for those. We have our great planning staff that process them.
We have a special plan for those.
Yeah, and we have a special plan. Thank you for mentioning that. Whereas they could keep the same type of code that they currently have.
The rural look, yeah, and roads and things.
In addition...
Should we start talking with some people there? Or?
We are.
We are, okay.
So that, the multi-pronged plan I talked about, the information outreach, the meetings, improving our website, which hasn't been updated for quite a while on the annexation topic, staging and having some neighborhood meetings, and currently I'm working with the Office of Communication and the staff here to get a good informational brochure out in the mail to every one of those residents. We will provide council with a copy. We went door to door with some information about a month ago. So we would like to welcome people in and grow our city and have people engage and provide better, I think, more uniform, efficient urban services to that area. We'll have to see how it goes.
Including fire service.
And police.
And police, right.
Other questions or comments? Okay, this is 23R, proposed annexation, Sun City West Fire District. This is possible action to adopt resolution 2013-50, opposing the proposed annexation of Area A by the Sun City West Fire District, and also to authorize staff to take any legal steps deemed appropriate to contest the annexation. Could I have a motion?
Second.
Moved by Ms. McCarlett, seconded by Mr. Edwards. Please vote. Clerk will record the vote. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. Next is call the public on non-agenda items. I have no slips, so it's reports from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Barrett. Just two brief items. The first is the monthly report on items moving through the council subcommittees. And the second is a brief item that John Sefton will mention about an item in community services.
Well, believe it or not, it's June, and it's going to be 110 degrees this week. So we thought, why not build a water park in Peoria? We have actually, through Community Services, partnered with Whitewater LLC to present the 2013 Summer Splash Tour. And it is a tour. They're visiting Queen Creek, Chandler, Gilbert, Glendale, and Peoria. On Saturday, June 15th, from 9 to 1 at Terramar Park, we'll have a neighborhood activity right there at 6900 West Happy Valley Road. We're going to feature all kinds of water, swimming pools and slides and fun, as well as Radio Disney Rockin' Show. The Radio Disney Rockin' Road Show. So it'll be a lot of fun. All the kids have a great time. Adults as well, if you're interested. And a couple of great partners in this. SRP is also partnering. They're going to be on site with water safety and educational programming. So with that, that is Saturday, June 15th, 9 to 1 at Terramar Park on Happy Valley Road.
You do that with such flair, Chad. Thank you. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you. It's time for reports from the City Council. We'll start with Mr. Leone.
Thank you, Mayor. I just got a couple of things. On May the 30th, I went to the annual award ceremony from the police department, and it was something great that all council people should be going. There was 4 of us there, and it was Bill Patana and John Edwards, Tony, and myself. And, you know, it's something that the council should go to these things where they respect us when they see us down there, and they say, hey, you know, we'll get the council here. And a lot of people shaking my hand saying, we're glad you came, and, you know, that it's just the idea of being there. You know, they had a awards committee, and they gave out Supervisors of the Year, Officer of the Year, Civilian of the Year, and Volunteer of the Year, and Explorer of the Year. And there's a lot more they gave out, but I just want to mention that anytime that the city has events like this, the police department, the fire department, I always think it's good that the council shows up. It makes them look, makes them feel good when they see us there. And just want to congratulate all of the police department that get awards. It was just great. The other thing is I had a meeting last night in Cotton Bowl where they're building 160 new homes right behind Fry's. And this was voted on back in 2006, and I actually forgot about that lot, and I just thought the people walked away, but they didn't. It was turned over 2 or 3 times, and now they're starting to work on it. So we had a meeting last night, and I want to thank Chris Hawkins for being there. We had him on a hot seat, and he had some other staff members from different departments, like economic departments. And they don't mind the homes. The homes are going to be great. They all support it. The only questions they had is like, what time they're going to start. Someone said they start at 4 o'clock in the morning and maybe work till 8 o'clock at night. Well, according to the ordinance, they can't do that. Then the other thing is that where the entrance are going to be to the off of 89th Avenue and Butler and 91st. That's the area it's going to be. It's going to be right behind Fry's. If you know where Fry's is, then there's about, what, 60 acres, Chris? 80 acres? That many? Okay. And there's, it's going to be great houses, but they did have questions, and they were all satisfied. Few were satisfied. They didn't want the medium in the middle, and Chris is trying to work that out. I don't know how he came with that. Then I'm only going so far, and then they're going to widen 89th Avenue, but it's going to come in and go back in, and the people didn't like that. So we're trying to get them to give us some property so we can make the whole 89th Avenue into all of wide enough so 2 cars can get through. But we did have a good meeting, and again, I want to thank Chris. He did a great job, and he was in a hot seat, but he held his own, and he did a great job. Thank you. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. And say a prayer for my wife. She's going on Monday for breast cancer. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Carlett. Mr. Edwards. Mr. Ames. Mr. Patana. Hey, I knew I'd hit someone sooner or later.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple weeks ago, I attended an open house ceremony for New Leaf. New Leaf is the parent company of Faith House, which is a domestic violence shelter. They provide all types of services to people, from behavioral health, counseling, whatever. The city granted them $25,000 through the CDBG program. I traveled there with Karen Imig, who administers that grant. They opened a behavioral health center, giving their participants of the programs as well as citizens access to first-rate mental health care. Trained staff, counselors, doctors are available on a daily basis. And with all the recent funding cuts that have occurred in that particular field, in the field of mental health, this is a much-needed and welcome service. On May 30th, I also attended the Peoria Police Annual Awards ceremony. And what I learned early on is that first priority and responsibility of any city is to keep its citizens safe. And whether it's police, fire, police volunteers, office staff, they all play a vital role in keeping Peoria one of the safest communities in Arizona. So if you haven't had a chance to read this little brochure that was handed out by the police, they have some very interesting stories, and I urge you to read them. It'll really open your eyes to what our first responders do on a daily basis to keep us safe. So congratulations to all of those who were recognized and received awards. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera.
Thank you, Mayor. Had an opportunity today to fill in as Vice Mayor at the West Valley Women's event with the mayors from the West Valley. I want to say, Mayor, that some of the members of the group said hello, and believe it or not, they said they missed you, so they want to see you there next year. So thank you.
It must be the haircut. I just have one comment. I want to thank Ventana Lakes and Mr. McCord. On Memorial Day, they had a very touching ceremony out there. I was the keynote speaker. This is something that's, Memorial Day is losing it's the purpose that we have for it. It's not to begin the summer looking toward Labor Day to end this summer. It's to honor those troops who never came home, or my generation came home in plastic bags. So I want to thank you for that, because that's a fading tradition that unfortunately we are losing. And with that, we're adjourned.